This is Codified Wisdom. Sharp insights, no fluff, and real-world wisdom from leaders who want to get you further, faster. Now, here's your host, Eric Eager.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Codified Wisdom. Again, where we interview some of the smartest, brightest people that I know, and they share their experiences, their journeys, and lessons learned. And so today's guest is an old dear friend of mine, but she is a phenomenal business leader, Amilya Antonetti, and she's a world-renowned human behaviorist, which you don't generally hear a lot of that, but she is incredible. She has, she is so humble, but I have to say, she has led, 2 billion in business growth. She has coached and has had at one point 53,000 employees underneath her globally, was named Woman of the Year or Women of the Decade, excuse me, not the year, by the Women's Economic Forum. And she's just, I have a tough time even keeping up with her, but she is one of the smartest, giftedest, most brilliant entrepreneurs I know. And I just can't tell you how excited I have just for other people to listen to her journey and conversation. So we're gonna, and again, I'm telling you, she's gonna drop some truth bombs on you here that you're just gonna soak up and go, wow, I wish I would have known. So Emily, thank you for so much for being on here. And before we get started, hey, before we start talking about what you're up to now, which is, always crazy cool, walk me through, because you have such an interesting story that I always love hearing more about, of like what was your childhood, and then your first entrepreneurial experience, because it is amazing. And just walk us through that.
It's amazing if you didn't live it. I don't wish it on anybody. So I'm Italian. I'm Italian mixed with Italian. And so I grew up building things with my dad and my brothers and my grandfather. And so my first business was construction, because it's what I knew. And so I stepped inside the construction world. Way back in the 80s, there was no women in construction. So I definitely made a splash and a statement there. And I absolutely loved it. I think construction will always be one of my first loves, because I love immediate gratification, right? Like you get to see the whole project come to life. And so I learned a lot in that industry. I have still great respect for it. And then I left construction and I went into hospitality. So I had 18 restaurants up and down the coast of California. Sold that out, and I really learned what I didn't know. So when I sold the restaurants, I learned this whole concept of franchising that I was like, wow, if I would have known that before I sold them, I would have structured that whole thing differently, but I loved hospitality too. I loved the whole dynamic. And what I found, there was a connection between construction and hospitality, because it's people driven. You know what I mean? Now you have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have the people to execute, it's useless. And so I really decided that what was going to make me different than everybody else was I was really going to start to study human behavior. And so, I started my first business at 17, exited at 19, was in the next round of businesses before I could drink. And so I started really early on studying humans. What did they value? What did they care about? What brought them joy, happiness? So I started focusing on time, money, focus, freedom, and happiness. And then stepped into, I guess, my claim to fame was I brought human and earth friendly forward. At the time when I got into, like, say, the green movement, green was a color. And I was like, no, I actually believe that we're going to move into awareness of being human and earth friendly. And there wasn't a human and earth friendly category. Like the only thing that was around at that time was planet. And I ended up spending some time with Jeffrey, who was the CEO of Planet at the time, learned a lot from him. And so I brought that company to life, so that that all of the products would be human and earth friendly, and there was no way to kind of mix them to cause a toxic effect. And so really started educating people on the difference between soap versus detergent, and spent a decade of my life really building that, a global, all around the globe, people around all the globe, 50 some odd thousand employees, and ended up selling that to one of the big boys. And that exit taught me a lot about the diligence process. Most deals die in diligence. And I think that that's what entrepreneurs don't know. They follow this great idea, and they want the world to fall in love with their idea. And I was like, well, that's not how it happens. What you actually really need to do is solve a bigger person's problem and aim towards that, not really the whole passion type of thing. And so in the diligence process of selling that company, uh, it led me into M&A, mergers and acquisitions. Really, I studied on why do things get acquired? How big does the problem have to be before a company starts looking for acquisitions? And when they look at acquisitions, what are they looking for and what will kill the deal? And so as a behaviorist, I really study deeply on where the deal dies, and so I consider myself an expert to look at anything and tell you this is where the deal is going to die, whether it's on scale, whether it's tech, whether it's people, whether it's IP. Like I can tell you where systems, like where is the deal going to die, and that information is invaluable for a CEO or a leader to be able to look at the company from that outside perspective. Because at the end of the day, your company is only worth what somebody's going to pay for it. You know what I mean? And so, we spent a lot of times thinking we've got a multi-million-dollar, exit. And I'm like, according to whom? It's worth that. And so really being able to, join people's team, and show them what the destination really needs to look like, and then the blueprint in order to get there. And I've spent, besides the 9 exits that I've had, 6 of them are over 100 million. I've done it now for thousands of other entrepreneurs and or working on behalf of VCs and PEs, right? So PE and VC groups hire me all the time when they're like, this should be working and it's not. Because when I come in, I'm not coming in to replace anybody. I'm coming in to teach you all the things that you need to know so that you're a better CEO or a better COO. I've held all the positions across the C-suite except for a CFO. I've been a controller, but I've never been a CFO. I'm just not that talented for that one. I'll let somebody else do that. But the rest of them I have. And so now in this game, I've had 4 tech companies. And so I've really gotten bitten by this bug of where we're going next. And I absolutely love everything about it. And so my favorite thing is to get involved in something that's antiquated or old or traditionally a traditional business and mirror for them what that business is going to look like over the next couple of years. And so this is a great time to be an entrepreneur. But my journey has been really in the trenches. Like what I've learned because I've got the scars to prove it. Like I've learned it on the front lines. And so, it makes me a little scrappy.
Well, let's dive in that a little bit. Okay, first of all, I guess for those listening, when we kept talking about, was the brand commonly known as Greenworks? Is that the so I just want to make sure because because everybody oh, Greenworks, I know that product.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
and then like we've talked about things is entrepreneurs, and business owners, and you start small and you start getting bigger and bigger. And with this advent of AI, and then some of the processes and stuff, what we always talked about, it's easy for people to get ahead. I'm the numbers guy. I always get to the data and doing all that stuff. And that's why I always admired what you were doing, because guess what? The business stops and starts. We can put all the technology in the world,
Mhm.
but it's the people.
Correct.
And then even with technology, you still got people involved.
Yep.
And as I've had the opportunity to grow businesses and learn the hard way and some other things, how many times have you heard business owners go, I love the business if I just didn't have to deal with the people?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And
you're in the people business. I don't care what business you're in the people business. And the thing that we are doing incorrectly right now as leaders is we're bringing in the tech first, right? We're bringing in the tech solution and we're hoping that the people will adopt. And I'm like, you are creating chaos is what you're creating, right? Versus growing the people and then adding on the tech as part of their toolbox so that it becomes an asset, not a threat. And I will say most of the companies I look at, most have the tech solution in place. They have the system in place. And then they're trying to get the people to catch up to it. I'm like, it'll never happen. You can have so much resistance that you're going to burn out the good people. They're going to leave. They're going to be frustrated. And you're going to house the less than desirable inside of it. and you're going to have zero to no engagement. And so the formula for that is backwards.
And well, and tell me that, here's the thing you always share these, and I always love these little nuggets of because, my dad grew up, in that engineering mindset where you went to work for a company and he worked for the same one for 30 years and he got his pension, and
Yeah, it's
he,
like a life sentence. It's
yeah,
like
it's
prison.
this life sentence. And, and that, and then this next generation, they don't think, it was eye-opening to me is that, every company's got this, what are your core values, mission, and it goes up on the board, and you open my eyes to the fact that the next generation of kids, they don't think and act and operate, and they don't think big company. The exciting thing I'm seeing the symptoms of, they think exponentially that I can have a $1 billion company with 3 people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
talk a little bit more of what you're seeing, because every business leader I know that's got old gray hair like I do, I don't understand this next generation. Why do they not like want to, stick with a company more than a year or two?
Yeah.
Help
So
us decipher
yeah,
that.
sure. So the first thing you have to understand is that we have 5 generations of workers underneath our housing for the very first time in history, right? This is the first time we've had that many generations actually in the workplace. And so that's really what you're talking about. And the oldest of the generation is more of that work ethic, loyalty. They believe in suffering. They believe that suffering, right, on the other side of suffering is reward. And it goes back generations. Hard work, that work ethic that you hear about that came out of, right, the 50s and the 60s. And that was the mindset, was that the thought of asking somebody if they were happy, they were, that was ludicrous. What do you mean? Who cares if I'm happy? I'm providing for my family. I'm providing for it wasn't in the equation, right? So it's not about being right or wrong. It's understanding that perspective, right? And how that perspective impacted a person's identity, right? So the job that they did was a reflection of their character and their identity. And so they were going to defend it. And so that's where the value was. It wasn't in, am I purpose or joy or happiness? And that wasn't it, right? It was like there was a set ways of, you got married and you provided for your family and you hope to have a little bit of something. And then someday, if you didn't die, you would then live life. But you didn't live life until you sacrificed. And that was usually over 20 or 30 years, the gold watch. And so that generation is still in leadership roles today. What they don't understand is the 4 generations that are also in the workplace don't subscribe to that perspective, right, at all. And so
Wow.
as you get down to the youngest generation of worker that's in there, their belief system is, I'm going to live right now. I'm going to live a full, amazing, incredible life. And I am not waiting until I'm 50 to do the things I want to do. I'm going to do it now. So they're looking for a opportunity to live their life by design the way they want to, which is experiential based. So for that generation of worker, they will take experience over owning a house, owning a car, being married, like any of those tactical things that had value at the top. They have no value here. None. They want to live their life. So freedom is what they're after, which is the opposite of the first generation. Right? It's like completely what? What are you talking about freedom? You know what I mean? Pay your dues. You know what? They were like, I want to be free. And so neither are right or wrong. It's just a different perspective. And as a behaviorist, if you are in a leadership position, then where you're having a flawed formula for success is you think that those workforce are going to come to where you are to care about what you need to do, what you need to execute, when a great
Yeah.
leader meets their people where they are. So you have to meet them where freedom is what's important to them, right? You've got to meet them where opportunity is important to them. You got to meet them on what they value, not whether you agree or not. It doesn't matter if you agree. What matters is it's their perspective. And how am I going to help you create the life based on your perspective as it syncs up with the business. That's my job as the CEO to go, here's still the business initiatives, right? The business must exist. First and
Yeah.
foremost, business must exist. But how do I bring somewhat of alignment with what you want and what you need and what you value and what your perspective is into the least amount of resistance of where the business is going? And that's the game that we're in now.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that opens the eyes to so many
Mhm.
things that people are struggling with. It's like,
Yeah.
well, why are they not, how come they don't want to worry about security and promotion and buying a house, and they're renting their house, and hey, I'm not feeling it, and so I'm not gonna, I don't work here
Which is,
anymore.
we have to have a higher level of leadership. So when you hit resistance, right? When something isn't going the way you thought it would go, right? So it's not hitting the desired outcome. You have to ask yourself, what could you be doing differently? And it always starts with a question to say, help me understand in this moment, what do you think the desired outcome is here? Right? Or ask somebody at this moment, what do you think is happening? That's a great question for younger people, is to ask them what they think is happening, because they will tell you that they think that this is an argument. And this is not an argument. This is a discussion, right? I'm not angry. I'm not upset.
Yeah.
I'm not disappointed. I have none of those emotions going on here at all. I'm having a conversation. And so we have to be able to say, what do you think is happening? Because they can then say, I think you're going to try to fire me, or I think that I've done something wrong, or, I think that I've disappointed. Like, you have to figure out what they think is happening. And when you get that, what you think is happening, it gives you the room to grow.
Well, and and I hear all this, the AI, okay, and it's automating so much in so many jobs that it's gonna shift a lot of the what traditional kind of functional jobs. And what I'm hearing is that now it's gonna force us to actually be better at relationships
Mhm.
and better at interacting with other people, because I'm not going to have a job where I'm doing some things that are now automated, where I got to figure out a way to have a higher plane of thinking and can you talk a little bit about, because I just know there's a lot of people struggling with this. Is my job going to be replaced, or I got to figure out how to use this AI thing that's getting
Yeah.
me so much further faster. But what I used to gain all my money, where my value was in my deep expertise in some subject, which now I can literally in 30 seconds uncover, it could be decades of experience in 30 seconds. How can you help people grapple with this? Oh my gosh, the world's just moved underneath my feet, and where's my value in the world?
Right. So I think it starts from a fundamental standpoint of understanding what makes humans humans, right? So we've lived in this world for a very long time, and over the last 20, 30 years have been pushed into this belief system that a human's highest and best use is tactical, and it's not, right? And so I think part of the reason why I've been successful inside a lot of these crisis management turnarounds, mergers and acquisitions, is because a lot of people come in and they're looking for a tactical solution. Well, success and failure isn't in the tactics. That's, that's not where it's going to, fall down, right? And
Yeah.
so when we start taking a look at humanity, right, to say, well, a human's best and highest use is being, not doing. And so now with the AIs that are coming out here, and especially agentic AI, we're having an opportunity to remove the tactical and stay focused on the meaning, right? The being side. And so when you think about what is needed more than anything else, and we've seen signs of this in the workplace over the last, like I said, the 5 generations of workers. When we move away from these first 2 generations and look at these 3 generations, what is dramatically changed right now is that the value is no longer in the answer. That's the biggest change that has happened right now. It used to be he who has the answer wins. Anybody can get an answer now. An answer is no longer valuable. What becomes valuable is the question, right? Learning
Oh, wow.
the question. And so if you've played with any of the AI devices that are out there, right, a lot of the software and apps that are out there, you will see that you get a different answer based on the question. And so
Wow.
which answer is right? And so we are being elevated as humans to do the things that we do better than anything else, and we will always do better, is thinking. Right?
Wow.
If you've ever watched the documentary between Warren Buffett and uh, Bill Gates,
Uh-huh.
and it's kind of giving you a snapshot of what life in a day looks like at that level. You will see that they spend most of their time thinking. If you follow or have ever followed anything about Warren Buffett, right? He will
Yeah.
tell you he spends a majority of his time thinking. Like he will read, before most people even have gotten up in the morning, he's read 5 or 6 different papers, magazines, whatever. It's in the thinking. And so the highly successful individuals are spending way more time thinking and learning to think than we realize. I always say that, when you are going from event to event to event, when your calendar is really busy, you're broke. You're broke because that isn't how success manifests, right? It's not in
Yeah.
doing. And we hear that all the time. And it's something that we have to really translate and teach that knowledge is busy does not mean you're successful. Busy doesn't mean you're productive. And the only way to have that perspective is if you're going in the right direction or not, is if you're spending time in self-assessing, right? Auditing, the thinking of, am I moving in the direction that I intended? What was my intention for the day? What is my desired outcome? All of the thinking that needs to be around the tactics, unfortunately, we've removed from business. And so by putting that back in, it takes the accountability back into the human to say, well, what's your intention with this meeting? Why are we here? What do you want to get out?
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And how would you like to get that result? And at what pace, right? Because if I'm going to take a plane, that's going to feel very different than if we're going to take a car. And so these questions on the experience is what's going to be critical as we start building our teams because of the 5 generation of workers, but also because we're onboarding, right, technology. Technology is not going to think for us to the level we think. It's going to try to emulate thinking, right? But it only works based on the questions and the direction that we're giving it. So ultimately, the experience is from the human. The human
So
is needed. Yeah. So we are more needed, not less needed, but it's with a different part of us. And so where people get fear is because they have become tactics.
tactics. Yeah.
They're walking tactics without realizing we're so much more than that. And so I think we're going back to more the human state, the ideal state of humanity. And so when you look at it from a behavior standpoint, the lower level is, like I want love. And then I need love. And the very, very top is I am love. Like I embody,
Yeah.
right? And so we have to think about that to say, what is the characteristics, right? Your character, we speak so much of that over the last decade, right?
Yeah.
What is the thing that you stand for? And can I know what it is that you stand for before you say anything? Is your life so representative of who you are that who you are screams louder than anything else you could say? And so we're going to get deeper as humans. And I think that's a good thing.
That's amazing because to your point, how many times have you heard that I'm just so busy?
Yeah.
I'm just so busy, and I've heard time experts always talk about this.
Oh, I
And
love when people talk about time management.
they talk about time management because what I've always
And I go,
heard,
time is man-made, right? It's
I,
not real.
well, and here's the other thing too. And then I've seen a lot of these, and they talk about. And I forgot who quoted this, but it was the fact that when you say I don't have time, it is code for it's not a priority for me.
Mhm.
And then where we spend time is now I just because I'm busy and because I'm transactional, I'm doing things. If
Mhm.
I'm hearing you right, it's not the like, why am I in this meeting?
Yeah,
Why
but
am I doing
it,
this?
the depth of human, so human connection, human intimacy, right? Value is never transactional, but we've become a transactional society. And we're also the loneliest society we've ever had because we're not meant to have transactional relationships. That's not how we're designed, right? So when somebody tells me I'm really busy, what I say to them is, and what are you trading? What are you
Yeah,
trading for that busy? Is that
yeah.
your husband, your wife, your children, your health, your finances, your stability? Because if you're busy, you're trading something. And if you don't know what you're trading, you're guessing. Now, that's high risk. That's high risk, low reward. You're guessing at your whole life instead of sitting down and being intentional.
And some of the things we've had, I've had the opportunity to explore with you and understand deeper is, translating this back to the business workplace
Mhm.
is that when and you always shared with me, because I was amazed, you got 53,000 people and that, you had all these people. And I think every business leader always wants to care for their flock, the
Sure.
people that are in, they're in charge. But you get so busy and so, I don't say we get so, I don't have enough time to go talk to them individually.
Mhm.
But at least, I guess what, now this next generation is understanding their needs, their thoughts on their journey
Mhm.
and kind of, hey, how can I help you along
Mhm.
on your personal journey? And maybe you're a short stop at my company and then you exponent, you jump off and start another one. How can business leaders tap into that, on the individual basis of how they kind of connect and they become engaged with a company versus hey, here's your onboarding booklet and then you need to recite the core values here a couple of times and you'll be in the Monday operational meeting from 9 to 12 and now boom, you're in the treadmill tactical.
Mhm.
And how do you, I guess, and follow up that question is then how do people mind shift? Because we're all trained this way.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I mean, if the invitation to your company and your onboarding is all transactional, you'll never have engagement. Never. Because I'm not a transactional human. And so if you're not spending time understanding what I care about, what I'm concerned about, what I'm afraid of, where I'm vulnerable, where my hopes and dreams are. And I know people say, oh, that's all wishy washy. But the wishy washy stuff is why I am loyal and I stay because you're helping me manifest the life that I want. And if you're helping me manifest the life that I want, I will follow you forever. And so
Well,
that's what we really have to get to, right? How do I, as a leader, how do I transfer my knowledge to you so I can shorten the path on where you say you want to be? And if we have a short time or a long time together, what is most important is that how you speak of me, right? Because every opportunity leads to another opportunity. And so if you've grown and developed underneath my leadership, even though you may leave and it may be heartbreaking that you're leaving, right? The relationship is not over, right? Because every time you speak of me, my legacy grows. And so you may stumble upon another client, another employee, another possibility. Things just don't end, they evolve. And so this whole like, well, I trained them and they left. And I'm like, well, did you create the evolution of the relationship? No. So that's on you. That's on you. You
wow.
created a short-sighted transactional relationship and now you're upset that they left. Why would
Wow.
you create something so short-sighted?
Wow. I mean, that is, it's eye opening, but then I'm also trying to think of that, the business leaders out there,
Mhm.
maybe I've got 20, 30 employees
Mhm.
and you know what, and because you've done this,
Mhm.
hey, as a business leader, entrepreneur, hey, I'm worried about things fundamental. Like when I got all this fuzzy stuff going on,
Mhm.
and I go, hey, this is even like, hey, man, I know it's great. I got to make payroll next week, and
Yeah.
I got to go sell this. You know, how what advice would you have not at the 50,000 employee, because I know that the principles still apply at 50,000, just exponentially bigger.
Right.
What advice would you give to that, 10, 20, 100-person organization that are just, hey, I'm just trying to provide jobs. I'm trying to attract good people and make payroll and hopefully provide a good product or service for whatever my clients and having an impact. But I'm in the tactical mode because I'm just trying to make payroll, make stuff, make sure all the wheels are turning, and I still want to care for my team and my people. What advice would you give them?
I would say your ego's in your way, because everything that you just said right now is about you, yourself, and I. You are doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it. It's all about you. So the company is about you. Do you want to satisfy payroll, or do you want to invite the people on your team to be able to help figure out how we're going to satisfy payroll? Do you want to do the power of the collective, the Napoleon Hill, right? That minds together have a greater solution. There's nothing more powerful than empowering your team to solve with you. But the reason why we don't ask them to solve with us is we're afraid for them to know that we may not know. That's your ego, right?
The ever evolving imposter syndrome that somebody's going to figure out that maybe I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and
Yeah.
I'm just trying to stay one
I
step
can't
ahead
even
of
tell
you.
you how many times I've had on a team huddle and I've said, okay, here is what I'm up against this week. In all honesty and all transparency, and say, I am open for other solutions. Right. And so when I do the round robin in our huddles, I'm asking people, what is the big monster in the room for the week for you? It could be a timeline, it could be whatever it is. But I also share candidly myself. Here's the big thing that I'm wrestling with this week, and I'm not sure I know how to solve it, because then I have the opportunity to be human, to be relatable, right? So if I cannot know, that means they can come to me and not know. But if I set the stage that I'm a leader, that I know everything and I'm gonna do it, right? Well,
Yeah.
then that means I expect them to come and that they're gonna know. But what if they don't? So that means they're gonna be hiding information. And where do things die? They die because I didn't tell you something.
Yeah.
Right? But if you would have told me, I would have been able to help you sooner, right? The sooner we solve problems together, the more likelihood we will have success. But we create silos, and people have the information and they all have a hidden puzzle piece, and nobody wants to show what the puzzle piece is. And I'm here trying to figure out what the overall picture is, but I'm missing a couple of pieces, right? Where the pieces would be so invaluable for the overall strategy. And so I think we have to learn to be vulnerable enough to come to our team and go, yeah, listen, I don't see how payroll is going to happen, and I need your help. And that also allows them to be valuable in the solution and proves to them that we could do it together. Now, yes, will some people just go look for another job? Sure, but they weren't engaged anyway. You know what I mean? They weren't there. People put such value on, oh my God, but I'll lose people. You're going to
Yeah.
lose people anyway.
What?
I mean, you're talking about, but what happens about the people who stay? What happens to the people that are in the heart of the business and take on ownership? That's why I love profit sharing. Like, I love that whole structure
Yeah.
of being able to lean in and make it yours. I don't want it to be my company. I want it to be our company,
And
our mission, our legacy. Now, that legacy is different for me than is different to you, but you have your own piece in it. And I think that when we start talking about where we're going, humans are meant to be together. We're literally, by design, we're designed to go together. We are meant to be together.
or tribes and
Yeah, and we've created this isolation, and then we wonder why we're self-medicating and we're lonely and we're depressed and we have all these issues. And I'm like, well, it's because you have no friends, you have no support system, you have nowhere you can go and have a net to fall on. If you look at, when we were in tribes, right? We all had a role, and not one role was more important than the other role. Every role
yeah.
was important, right? Whether you were the matriarch or the patriarch, or whether you were the, little witch doctor, or you were the whatever. I mean, whoever, we all were important to the survival of the community. Well, we're getting back to the thinking, the being, the connection. What does it matter? It matters. It all matters. Everything matters. And so the woo-woo side of this is becoming more and more prevalent as tactical solutions get solved by technology, because
Yeah.
we're all asking each other now, who are you and why should I care?
Wow. I mean, that is That is some bold advice, but it has got to be scary.
I will
I
say
mean,
that I am not liked by everyone. I'm a unique blend. I have a shirt that
no.
says I'm not for everyone. But I speak, I speak as a behavioral mirror. I mirror for you, the other side of what it is that you're saying so you can see your own truth because you only have control on your side. And so you have to be able to say, wow, my ego is driving this ship. Okay, you're going to hit a problem,
Yeah.
right? It's only a matter of time. You can only carry so much weight for so long. And so being able to empower others is part of leadership, right? I think the greatest thing that I can teach people, if they take away one thing, it's not in this relationship for you to walk away and go, she's smart, she's knowledgeable, she knows. What I want you to walk away from in the relationship is that I now believe I can, I now believe I'm smart, I believe, right? So it's not how you see me, it's about how I can help you see yourself. That's leadership.
And so for a lot of people, as we've grown up and they have these phenomenal great leaders in all these things, how scary is it? And I've done this. I've walked in a room and said, "Folks, I don't know. I need your help."
Yep.
But let me tell you, it's a little scary.
Yes.
A little scary to walk in and now, I totally get. I have drank the Kool-Aid and totally believe that, hey, we're in this together. I don't have all the answers. We're going to solve this together, and you get buy-in. But let me tell you, that's a little scary to walk in because we've been programmed. And I mean, think about strong leadership. We've been imprinted with strong leadership is command and control, and you do this and you sign up, and so there is a little bit of that philosophy
Yep.
of, hey, don't wait. I'm going to tell you what you need to do and go execute, and that's how we get done.
You can't duplicate it, right? It's not replicatable or
Yeah.
duplicate, right?
And
I think the greatest lesson that we can have as leaders is learn how to surrender.
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 Okay. All right. And all right, unpack that a little bit. Tell me more about surrendering. What do how do I surrender?
Well, I mean, well, there's a great book called The Surrender Experience, which I think every leader should read. It's difficult on the first like fourth of the way in. It's a hard read, and then it gets
Yeah.
really. So I'm like, hang in there for like 80 pages. But to be able to surrender, to be able to say, this illusion of power and control, this illusion of certainty and uncertainty, like none of that is true, right? Nothing is certain, right? I really don't have any control over anything other than my response, right? And so being able to surrender that there's something bigger at play all the time and that I am always contributing to the outcome, right? Now, I may not like the outcome. I will tell you there's plenty of time I don't like the outcome. But I have to surrender to the thought and the notion that I then contributed. I somehow contributed to the result. So even if something is horrific, right, you did play your role. Now, people lose their mind when I say that because they're like, what about all this bad stuff? I'm like, yes, I understand it was horrible, but you played a role. We always are playing a role. And to surrender to that notion allows you to open up the space to be more intentional, right? About what are you doing? What are you participating in? What do you believe? What is your impact on yourself and on others? And so surrendering, I will say, has and continues to be the hardest work for me to do because I'm a control freak, right? I'm an absolute control freak. And I will see over and over again that I get into the pilot seat. I'm supposed to be a co-pilot, right? And so
Yep. Yep.
I have to pull back on my ego and sometimes surrender to the experience because that's how we learn and grow. And we have to provide that space for our team and for our friends and our family and our loved ones for them to surrender to, right? To be able to surrender into that vulnerability to go, you know what? I can't push that square peg in that round hole anymore. But opening up that space allows the answer to appear.
Wow. And how true. I've always heard this, and sometimes even when I study business models, some of the things that, um, if I want to charge you $1,000 an hour for advice, I'll make it sound so horribly complex. But on the business side, there's only three business models on the planet. Either we make it, we distribute it, or we provide a service. And what I've seen or heard that people always taught me fundamentally, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, is always that people just want to be seen, heard, and appreciated. That's again, getting to that core value of human beings that, hey, I want to contribute.
Mhm.
I want to be appreciated, and I want to be seen and heard. How much is that still fundamentally,
Yeah, seen,
accurate?
heard, recognized, and valued,
Okay.
right? So yes, that is fundamentally for humans, it's part of our value system, right? To create that value is to be able to have those, right. I can't have value if I'm not seen, I'm not heard, and I'm not recognized, right? And so we have to be able to first start with self. That's where we go wrong. We start doing it for trying to do it for other people, and we haven't done it for ourselves. And so that formula will crumble, right? So I can't take care of you if I can't even take care of myself. And so it starts with self. And I know people say, well, that sounds selfish. And I'm like, well, the greatest gift I can give you is taking care of myself, because then you don't suffer that burden.
Yeah.
When I can take care of myself, I can then share the knowledge on how then you can take care of yourself, or how I can support you in taking care of yourself. But I can't do those if I can't do them for myself. And a lot of times what happens is you've got a team of people who are being told to do a lot of things, but when you look at the leader, they don't even demonstrate that in their own life.
Yeah.
It's, parents tell their kids, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I laugh. I go, you do realize they're looking at you and they're like, you don't, right? So I'm like, you're trying to tell your kids to, be healthy and follow their passion and be a good member
Yeah.
of society and, whatever you are. And I'm like, yeah. And they're looking at you and you're fat, you're unhealthy, right? You have a horrible marriage, you're miserable all the time, right? So all the things that you're telling them, they're looking at you going, yeah, but you don't have any of those things. So why would
And
I listen to you? Right?
see, and
If you don't
y-
have what it is that I aspire to, I'm going to turn it, even if you are my parent. So same thing too, if you're a leader and you're telling somebody to be on time and be dedicated and be
yeah.
engaged, whatever, and then you're not.
Seeing that reminds me. There's a video that it's a commencement speech by Dr. Rick Rigsby, out of he was a football coach at A&M, and the title of the speech is "Everything I Learned in Life Was from a Third Grade Dropout." And what he talks about is dad being a servant
Mhm,
in the cafeteria. And he said, though, that his dad would get up at 4 in the morning,
mhm.
and he'd go, "Dad, why are you working so hard?" And he just said, every now and then, he says, every now and then I want to see you catching me in the act of greatness, and make sure that your servant towel is bigger than your ego. It's a phenomenal, but it weaves in again on these fundamental human
Mhm.
connection points you're talking about of
Yeah.
take care of
And when
yourself
I
and
trigger
demonstrate.
people, right? When I trigger people on my directness, they're like, I can't believe she just said that. I'm like, well, the reason you're upset is because you know it's true,
Yeah.
right? It's because you know it's true. Now, I have struggled with all of them. I have struggled with all of them, and I have to come to terms with that struggle and accept it and then go, but what am I going to do differently? What am I going to do differently if I want a different result? And
Yeah.
so I try to subscribe to, when I'm teaching, I try to say, you show respect to absolutely everyone, but you deny some access. You
Okay.
respect everybody, but deny the access. And then I
Okay.
also say, be kind. Kindness is an undervalued trait. Be kind, but just because you're kind doesn't mean you make yourself available.
Okay.
And so those things really are deeper dive thinking nuggets, right? To be able to say, "Oh, I can always show respect, but it doesn't mean I agree with you. But I
Yeah.
can I can share and show up respectful." What I can control is access, right? Boundaries and guidelines. I can control access and I can control my availability. And so that's on your side. So when people complain about whatever, time management, whatever, and I'm like, how accessible are you? How available are you? Because that's on you. That's on your side. And so they're just little tiny behavior nuggets that help people make better choices.
Oh man. Well, as always, my old friend here, I know that I could spend, again, I always soak this stuff up because I just know we could spend hours
Yeah.
talking about this. How, for people listening, and I know people listening, you've got to, there had to be some great things in here. I know that even I was going, man, that's a reminder.
And wherever I triggered you, that's your work to do. Because it's not about me. I'm just a mirror. So when I trigger people and they get all upset, I'm like, that's just the area you need to look at.
No, it's well, how can other people, like how can they follow you? How can they soak up these little nuggets, these little nuggets of truth,
Yeah.
while you're out, changing the world?
So always Amelia.com. I mean, I made it really easy. Amelia.com. You can, learn more about me. You can access me, do whatever you want to do through Amelia.com. I'm on all the social platforms. So same thing too. If you can spell my first name, you can find me on any social platform. And I try to give, I try to do, interviews, and I try to do, segments and podcasts and those type of things in order to give, to share the knowledge that I have with others, but at the same time, learn together. Like you and I learn together all the time.
Oh
Like this
yeah.
a work in process. I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And I consider it all a blessing. And so, together we're better. I really believe that together we are better.
Oh man. Well, that's the whole purpose here. I'm just trying to, like that's why we have great people like you on here of, you're sharing experiences that somewhere along the lines, maybe it may be one person, maybe 10 people, maybe 100 people,
Yep.
that a couple of little things that you just shared help them not have to make the same dumb mistakes.
Yep.
Maybe get them a little bit further down the path. They'll create new ones. I promise you, we're all going to continue.
Yeah.
I got a PhD in dumb mistakes,
Yeah.
and
Well, we all have, right? Yeah.
and
That's why we
but
laugh at ourselves. I could literally crack myself up on a daily basis on the things that I do. And I'm like, what was I thinking?
oh, absolutely, it always looks good on paper too. That's why,
Yeah.
like,
It
yeah,
is.
you do all
Yeah.
this. It looks good on paper. What happened?
Yeah.
But hey, I always ask people at the end of each one of these is that if you could go back in time. So suddenly I had our AI company created a time machine, and
Mhm.
you could go back in time and catch the young Amelia
Mhm.
at some point in time, and pull her aside and go, hey, this is the wiser, more experienced Amelia. Hey, here's one or two things I would suggest. Hey, don't go there. Do this, because you're going to avoid a lot of pain and anguish, and there's no reason that you're going to get further faster by doing this, not the hard way.
Mhm. I think if I was going to talk to the younger version of myself, I would definitely drive home that it's not about the success, it's about what you trade. And so I really, really, truly believe, don't focus on my successes. Ask me what I traded. And if I was talking to my younger version of myself, I would be much more mindful on what I was trading along the way. Not that I have regrets, but I wasn't fully aware of what I was trading to be where I am at today. And there's always a trade. Anybody who tells you you're not trading is a lie. You will be trading something.
Well, I know you traded some things, but I know that you're out there helping. You traded some things, but hopefully the things that the after benefit of that is you're helping a lot of people, and you're helping a lot of business leaders. And I thank you for taking a little bit of your time,
Thank
because I
you.
know how incredibly busy you are these days. And and I think there's going to be an even higher demand, because as we get through this AI stuff, I know that your lessons learned, your
Mhm.
behaviorist, knowledge and experience, people are really going to lean into. So thank you
I love
again.
I love working on other people's projects. I love coming to events, and sharing some insights and bringing our behavioral games, it's like that. So I'm a big team player. So yes, I love playing with my colleagues. It's better.
Well, hey, listen, everybody. Thank you again. We're blessed to have such just amazing people that are willing to share their time and their experiences. And again, I hope you got a couple of little nuggets out there that'll help you get further faster and make a difference in the world. So, hey, we'll catch on you next time, next week.
Thanks for listening to Codified Wisdom with your host, Eric Eager. Want more? Subscribe and follow Codified Wisdom on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. To learn more about Eric Eager and how 4Impact Data helps leaders get further, faster, visit 4impactdata.com.